And I mean, we've seen this, right? Nobody is exempt from challenge, from adversity, from obstacles. We all have it in our life. It's going to come sooner or later. That's what the 41 life is, though. Overcoming those challenges, overcoming those obstacles as they come at us and coming out stronger on the other side. So that's what we're here for. That's what we're about. We want to provide encouragement. We want to help people to keep going through those times, and we want to have some fun along the way. This is the 41 life. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back for another week. We're excited to have you with us, and we're excited for a little surprise to have our first guest on here. One of my really good friends, opening day starter a couple times, has thrown a no-hitter in the big leagues, pretty much should have won Rookie of the Year, in my opinion, and has been an All-Star. John Means is with us today, and we are so excited to have you on here, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I've been listening to every episode. It kind of gets me through my rehab, honestly. I listen to it and
Yeah.
do my prep. So I thank you for having me on.
Man, appreciate you. Speaking of that, rehab right now is going on. How's everything going? I know a lot of people here are Orioles fans and probably have been keeping up with a little bit of your career over the last few years, so I'm sure an update would be good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really good. I feel good about this one. The last one didn't go so well, so hoping this one goes a little smoother than the last one. I have about five or six setbacks in the last one. So
Yeah,
this one I have a lot more faith in what I'm doing and so I'm excited to get another opportunity at it, especially with how the last one went. But I'm feeling really good. Hopefully start throwing here in about a month and a half
awesome.
and get back to baseball stuff. Yeah,
That's
it's
it.
it's been a long time.
That's it, man. Well, I mean, I know personally how hard you work, and so for anybody out there, I know he's doing everything he can to get back on the field and stronger than ever. And so I can't wait to see how it unfolds, and I'm sure a lot of other people are excited as well. And I mean, you got the accolades to go with everything, but happy to hear everything's going good. Like I said, John is one of my really good friends, and I mean, we met in 2014 when we got drafted, which
Small pups, just little pups.
I know.
Not
I saw a
have no
picture.
idea what the future holds.
I know. I saw a picture the other day of us, like, pretty, or I think maybe in Aberdeen or something like that. And it was
Oh
just
man.
so weird to see how different we both looked. And just thinking back to, like, just those times, it was fun. But I mean, so much has happened since then. And so,
hmm
um, excited to talk about that a little bit today. But, you know, Kansas City boy. The Chiefs are playing tonight, so
hmm
I know you're
I don't
gonna
know
be
if you know this.
glued.
They're 7-0. They're doing pretty well this season.
Yeah,
Just like to throw that out there. This is my lucky
yeah,
shirt too, by the way. This is what I wear every Sunday.
yeah.
But no, I'm excited. Been a big Chiefs fan. Okay, I'm not one of those bandwagoners. Okay, since they've been pretty good the last few years.
That's true. He
My
was there
parents, yeah,
years and
through
years
the
ago,
rough parts.
years and years ago.
No, it's been very fun to be a Chiefs fan the last 5-10 years.
Yeah. Well, okay. So with that, being a Chiefs fan, we got to get your opinion. I mean, the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelsey, everybody's talking about it. You can't get away from it. I mean, how are we feeling about this?
I love it. I love it. I think she should just go ahead and move here to Kansas City. Yeah, help the market,
Maybe.
boom here. And I
Yeah.
think it's a sleeper town though. So I don't want word to get out too much of how good Kansas City is. But
Yeah.
it's been fun. It's been fun. I don't think she gets shown too much. I know everybody likes to complain how much she gets shown on TV. I think that it's good for the league. It's good for the Chiefs,
That's
and
it.
and so I know Travis Kelsey had a great game. I think was it last game? Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I have
Um,
him on my fantasy team this year. I've been wanting to get him for like 3 or 4 years, and I finally was able to this year. And of course, it's the year when he had a slow start, but
mm,
he's been turning it on the last few games, so I'm all right with it. He's
I
coming in
know.
when we need him to.
Yeah, I'm sure your fantasy team's doing a lot better than mine right now. So
I don't know. I don't know.
they're
I
not.
I I got Christian McCaffrey to
Uh,
start out. You know, when he hasn't been able to play, and
Injuries, man. Injuries will
I
kill
know
you.
like half of my team's been hurt. Half of my big players, should I say, have been hurt. But
Yeah, I
we're
couldn't imagine
surviving.
fantasy baseball. Could you imagine doing fantasy
Oh man,
baseball and how many
no,
injuries and stuff, especially the last few years,
yeah,
all the
I
arm
know that.
injuries and people taking week two off.
I know. I have quite a few friends that do it and or like play fantasy baseball. I tell them the exact same thing. I'm like, that is way more of a time commitment than I think I would be
Yes,
willing to make. Because I mean, you could
every
dig
day.
into, yeah. I mean, it's not like fantasy football where you set your lineup and maybe you're looking at it a couple times, or maybe more than that, depending how into it you are. But man, fantasy baseball that's a lot of research, a lot of work, and more than I think I'm willing to do. But
Yeah, no, I that's a lot. I don't know. I don't know if I could do it after I'm done playing or not.
yeah.
TBD.
Yeah, yeah, but we'll see. But
Hmm.
like I said, we've been friends since 2014 when we got drafted. So leading up to that, tell us a little bit about John Means growing up, John Means in high school, college. Like, just tell us a little bit about you as a person, background wise.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously grew up in Kansas City. Was not an athlete at all growing up. I mean, I played all the sports. I played all the sports. I participated. I definitely wasn't the best player on the teams, but just I love sports. I loved them all, played them all, but baseball was really I had my only calling, especially when I got to the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
And so just kind of stuck with that. And did that thing. Grew up in a pretty Christian household. My grandpa was the assistant pastor at our local church. I grew up just running around those halls every single day. My both my parents worked, so I grew up a lot with my grandpa who just turned 98
Holy
last week,
cow!
which
Wow,
is he's still doing it. Man, he
that's
is
awesome.
very strong-willed man. But
I'd say
he is.
so.
Yes, no, he just turned 98, but yeah, him and my grandma kind of helped raise me, and so my grandma was the librarian and he was the assistant pastor of the church, and so I'd spent a lot of time in there. Yeah, the faith journey has been, had its ups and downs, and
Yep.
trying to figure it all out, and but I think it's been stronger and stronger as time goes on.
Awesome.
But yeah, and then played baseball in high school. I was a really small kid. I was like 5'4" going into high school, and not fast, as David knows. Tough
he
running
he
form.
the running form, it's improved over time. We've come a long way with
I
it, but
appreciate that. I appreciate
I
that.
I remember the first time you showed us like a childhood picture. It was like a completely different guy. Like we were like, "There's no way that that was little John Means, and this is where we're at now."
Yeah, I was short and round, and it was tough sledding for me on the athlete side. But ended up growing. Was a late bloomer, and went to Fort Scott Community College out of high
Hmm.
school. Went the JUCO route, and then pitched there, and then went to West Virginia, where Devin also attended. We
That's
just missed
right.
each other, I think,
A lot of West
but went.
Virginia pride in her family, so
Yes, yeah.
that was actually I think probably one of like the first connection points that we had. Like I mean,
Hmm.
we got down to Florida and had no idea who anybody was, but I knew you went to WVU, and at that point, I think me and Devin had like just started dating, so I was like,
Hmm.
all right, well at least I know somebody that I have something in common with, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what I sing McCoy, my son, country roads every night for
That's
before
right.
bed, and I'll catch him singing it every once in a while just throughout the day, and
Uh huh.
when he's playing with his toys or whatever. So I'm like, yes, nailed it.
Training them right.
Training him right. But yes, went to West Virginia and then got drafted uh, with you in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And then our story kind of started, and
That's
we
it.
grinded our way through those minor leagues.
We sure did.
Uh, yeah, it
I
was tough sledding for us for a little bit. I mean, not success wise, just Orioles were kind of. I mean, now we can look back and they're on kind of the
Mhm.
tail end of a regime, and then
Yep.
they kind of brought in the new one. So we survived the tail end there.
Yeah.
It was pretty tough to do that.
Yeah. Well, I remember, and I don't know if you were this way. I mean, of course, everybody's excited when you get drafted, and like, draft day is a big thing in itself. And then you get to,
Hmm.
wherever you're assigned to, trying to figure out, who your friends are going to be, how do you manage just the workload, lifestyle, all that stuff. But at that point, when we got drafted, like the Orioles they were doing it. Like
Yeah,
Adam Jones, Manny was there, Scope was there,
Chris
Tillman,
Davis,
Chris Davis. The pitching staff was, I mean, the bullpen was
Gossman had just
lights out.
yeah.
It was, I mean, there was a lot to be excited about. And I
No.
remember 2014. I don't know. I have this memory of me, you, and Pat Connaughton sitting in our room, and we were watching the game where, supposedly that was the loudest that Camden's ever been.
Oh yeah.
When Delman Young hit the double that cleared the bases and ended up sweeping the Tigers when they were supposed to go to the World Series that year. But I remember like all of us were just like, man, like we're gonna get there. That's gonna be awesome.
I don't know, but I was like, I'm never gonna make it. Like, look at those, look at how loud that stadium is. Look at all these like guys. I mean, you have Chris Tillman throwing 95, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's just like, dang, these guys are major leaguers. Like, and I
yeah,
remember, I mean, like at spring training, or even like when we went to Instructs, they
yeah,
had some like big leaguers down there for like the taxi squad. I'm like, these guys, like, it just seemed so far away. It
yeah,
seemed like unattainable to me. I don't know about you, but yeah, it's just crazy to see. Like, then you get in it and you see the inner workings of it, and how
hmm,
how much it takes to get to that point. And but yeah, no, that team was very good. I was actually
yeah,
there in because I was there for the Royals series in
yeah,
2014. It was right after I got drafted,
uh huh,
because Kansas City, and we went to the game four of Royals Orioles, and
hmm,
my dad, it was me and my dad, and he did not let me wear any Royals gear because I was a big Royals fan growing up, right? And I just got drafted by the Orioles. I'm like, Dad, like the Orioles were such a random team to me. Like, it was
yeah,
like, I'm in Kansas City, they're in Baltimore. That seems so far away. Like, I know it's
yep,
both AL, but at the same time, like, but he's like, you're not wearing any Royal stuff. So I wore like a super neutral, like gray pullover or something. And
yeah,
but no, I saw, yeah, the Royal. That's when the Royals moved on and ended up losing the
yeah,
World Series. But
yeah. No, I mean that. You got to pledge new allegiance once you get drafted. That becomes, and like you said, it can be
mhm.
so random. It's a team that you didn't expect. Maybe it's a team you're not as familiar with, but you know, I'd say since then you've gotten pretty familiar with them.
Yeah, now I know, the history of it, and it's like the
Yep.
the culture and all of it. And
Yep.
yeah, it's pretty cool to like kind of just get through it. And that's kind of how West Virginia was too. Like, even going to
Mm-hmm.
college, I know you kind of went closer to home, somewhat, but like going from Kansas to West Virginia, like I had no idea like West Virginia, like who their rival was. Like, they hated Pitt, and I'm
Yep.
like, oh, you guys like really don't like Pitt at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
They
like, oh, you get
really
thrust
don't
it.
like them.
Really don't like them.
It is a whole different level of
Yeah,
like
Pitt and Marshall.
dislike.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
it's, yeah,
Yep.
they do not like him. Like, okay, noted.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of funny how baseball can take you places that you kind of get thrusted into a culture that you could have no idea, what you're supposed to, like, dislike, or that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, you learn quick, and I mean, if you want to impress the right people, stick around and all that stuff. But I mean, ultimately, the goal of impressing people, or the way to impress people the most, is performance. And
Hmm.
you talked a little bit about like, we got drafted. We pretty much hit every level together, and
Hmm.
we were roommates all through the
You were
minor
like, you were
leagues.
always slightly ahead of me, and it was always like you moved up, and then a few months later, maybe I moved up,
I
and
know.
you're always like,
I remember
and I was
like
like, because we text, I'm like, how is it? How is it up there? How's
yeah,
the weather up in Bowie at the time, or Norfolk,
yeah,
or whenever you move up?
yeah. I always remember like because I mean we just got so close during that time. Like
Yeah.
I mean, you're on road trips together. Like if you're not, we're spending so much time together at the field, and then outside of that, we're in the hotel room. We're eating together. We're doing so much that I remember anytime I would get moved up, or like if we just weren't, together on the same team for whatever reason, it was always just so weird. because I was just like, well, who do I room with now? Like, like that's my guy right there. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But no, I mean, it was fun, and you talked about the ups and downs. Like, dive into that a little bit. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
was maybe lay out like kind of how your minor league career progressed, how it tracked, like some of the high points, some of the low points. Like, what was your experience going through that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you just try to, it's such a grind just because you have so many levels to hit before you make it to the biggest one. You try to just grind out whatever year. And, I started, we did Aberdeen and then you ended up skipping Delmarva and I was Delmarva for almost a full year, then ended up moving to Frederick. And then the next year spent a little bit of time in Frederick, you were in Bowie, and then I moved up to Bowie. And we were kind of like the first two in Bowie, I think. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think we moved up to Bowie pretty quick, and then for me, I stalled hard in Bowie.
Same,
It was some
same.
rough times, in beautiful Bowie, Maryland.
Yeah.
But it was yeah. So I ended up spending, I think it was 16, 17, and 18 in Bowie, three different seasons, and by 18 that's when I kind of started to, okay, like I didn't start off well. It's my third season there. Like I wasn't pitching well. That was when I kind of started to think, okay, what else could I do? What else could I get into besides
Mm-hmm.
baseball? Like I don't know what next year holds. I don't understand. I don't know what the deal is. And so I created a LinkedIn account and I started to kind of not put myself out there more, but started to like build resume and
Mm-hmm.
try to understand what I needed to do for that. And that was in 18 when I was in Bowie. And then I ended up getting called up to Norfolk in 18, even though I had like a 5 ERA. Like I was not doing well. And
Good
I remember
enough.
getting, yeah, I mean, I got called
That's
in. I got called into Gary's office, or our coach at the time, and I remember him saying, like, you're going up to Norfolk. You've paid your dues here, and it's time to go up north. Like, not even like, and I didn't earn it. And I'm not trying to say I earned it at all. But that's kind of like, okay, like, and because there was a few guys up in Norfolk that had opted out of their contract, so they had spaces to fill,
mm-hmm.
and it was me and Paul Fry, I think at the time,
Yep.
moved up to Norfolk at the time, and I actually like ended up pitching well in Norfolk,
Yeah.
well-ish, and I thought maybe that was 18 was the Orioles team was bad. That was when they had the real
Yeah.
bad downfall. I think they had won over at the end of the year. They won like 40, 45 games,
That was a tough year. That was a tough
and
year.
that was, yeah, it was not ideal. And so because they were doing so bad in AAA, you're like, I just have to like pitch well enough to get that chance or whatever. And you
Mm-hmm.
were up at this point, I think, right? In 18, you were
Yeah,
up, and
yeah. Because I remember we were having conversations.
hmm
Like I was kind of up and down for the first half of that year. I started in AAA that year, and I remember I was hoping so much you were gonna be there. And I remember like you getting assigned to Bowie, and we were just like, man, like, are you kidding me? Come on now. Um,
yeah. When that
we were
happened, I was like,
hoping, yeah. And so
deflating.
yeah, and I had gotten put on the 40 man or protected that off season, and so I was kind of up and down for the first half of the year, and then from the All-Star break on, I was pretty much up for that season. And I remember like every week I was like checking in with you, like, how you feeling? Like, just keep going. You're almost there. Like, you're gonna get
hmm
there. And I could definitely tell, like you were saying, the season as it progressed, you were kind of just like, man, like I'm making some progress. Like you said, you got up to AAA, like then you kind of kicked it in gear a little bit more.
hmm
And I was just like, we're down the stretch. It's September. Roster's expanded. Like,
Yeah.
this is
And at
prime
that
time.
point, yeah, at that point, we had all gone home. So like by September,
Mm-hmm.
for whenever the season ends in AAA, September 1st or 3rd or whatever it is, we're like waiting there because usually they have a taxi squad
Yep.
during instructs, and we all went home, and I went home. I for 2 weeks didn't touch a baseball and did not. I was just watching college football, I think drinking a
Yep.
beer, and got a call, and it was our minor league coordinator calls me and he's like, "Hey, have you been throwing or working out?" And I was like, "Yes, I've been throwing, working
Of
out. I've
course
been
I
doing
have.
all of it." And he's like, "Well, we might need you," and because there were some injuries at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good to go whenever you need me." Just like, of course. And so we went down to Florida, and it was me and Dylan Tate in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and Tate was, prospect, and we had just traded for him, so he would have probably been the first one up. He ends up like kind of tweaking something down there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just me, my lonesome self down in down in Florida,
Yeah.
trying to ramp back up. I literally got down there. It was like bullpen, throw, game, bullpen. Like it was just like right
Yeah.
into it after 2 weeks of just nothing.
Yeah.
And so I finally I get the notification. It's like Alex Cobb has a blister, and it was like
Ah.
right after I got that notification. It's like, and then I got the call. It's like, hey, congratulations, you're going to meet the team in Boston. And it's
Yep.
like, all right, then debut. Gave up about 6 or 7 runs to the Boston Red Sox, and then went on my
But
happy way.
we we didn't care at that.
No,
Like
I was the
we
best day
we
alive.
were
Yeah, of course.
just. I mean, I was pumped you were there. I know, of course, you were pumped you were there. Like I remember just like having your family. Like Caroline was there. Like it was just a really awesome time. Like to get
Hmm.
to see. And like you mentioned Paul Fry, like he was up there too. Like it was just a lot of the guys that we had kind of like grinded through the minor leagues with were
Hmm.
now getting up to the major league level. So it was like really cool to see all that hard work coming together, not just for one person, but for all of us. Because I mean, we kind of had like a pretty core group of guys that got tight, just going through everything through the minor leagues. So
Hmm.
that was really fun. I know,
Yeah.
obviously, you walk away from that game not feeling tremendously great about performance,
Yeah.
but
But they didn't end up winning the World Series, so I didn't feel too bad.
yeah, they
That team was
they
stacked.
they killed it. I mean, it was pretty
They were
pretty
so good.
incredible,
Yeah.
and you know to come back though the way you did, like obviously like that, and circumstances and everything play into that, like you just laid out, but you come back. That was your major league debut. You go from pretty much like ready to move on from baseball, what's next in life, to being in Fenway Park just probably a couple weeks, a couple months later. That's crazy. That's awesome. Like I'm sure you're on cloud nine, but you worked hard through that off season. We talked a lot through that off season about kind of how everything was going. And you came into spring training and right out of the gate, I mean, everybody was like, I don't know what you did, but something's working. And talk like what was, kind of going into that first
Hmm.
major league season. Like you obviously had a lot of success, like we'll talk about in a minute, but like what was going into that year thought process wise, knowing that you had kind of dipped your toes in the big leagues at the end of that season?
Yeah, no, I obviously, you kind of, when you get the taste of it, it's like you kind of get the ultimate feedback of, do I have it or do I not? And I got the feedback of I did not have what I needed to have to pitch at the big league level. So I had heard about this facility, P3 out in St. Louis, from a couple different guys that we had played with, we had come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, St. Louis isn't that far away. I'll go like for the week and then come back on weekends and try to make that happen. And it was a pitching facility, and
Mm-hmm.
I went there, and that was when weighted balls were kind of niche, and it was kind of that was like before analytics, really. Like it was.
Mm-hmm.
Some teams have gotten to that point, and some teams hadn't. Like it wasn't like a full on, everybody had figured out how to use analytics and weighted balls and create pitches and that sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I went to this facility and kind of learned all of that stuff, the weighted balls, what pitches were good and what pitches I need to work on and that sort of thing. And so I went and kind of was, eye opening there and went there, worked on it. Not sure what's going to happen, but I went into spring training and was like, I'm going to try and throw as hard as I possibly can. If it blows out, it blows out. But I'm going to try to I'm gonna try to impress, I guess. I don't know, but went in and was throwing harder than I ever had, and ended up, making the team. You and me on the opening day roster at Yankee
Yeah.
Stadium.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that
which
was
is
awesome.
it was crazy. But yeah, I was just hanging out in the bullpen. I was like our long man to start the year
Uh-huh.
out there at Yankee Stadium, and just like heart racing every game. I mean, I kind of knew it wasn't going to pitch the first game. You
Yeah.
kind of get your horses out there for the first game, but ended up pitching the third game, and yeah, went well. Found a changeup that I'd never had over my entire minor league career, and,
Yeah.
and just kept
I
throwing it.
I remember I remember when you first started throwing that. It was like, normally with the changeup, you want it to have sink to it, fade, speed difference, all this, all that stuff that makes a changeup good. I remember like you came into spring training that year and you're like, I'm just gonna mess around with this and throw it, and it was like the exact opposite, but nobody could hit it, and nobody could figure
Yeah,
out exactly what was going on, why it was working so well. But it quickly just became like your pitch. Like that was a difference maker for you. And that played a huge role, like you were talking about, after that Yankee series. Probably within that first month, I don't know if somebody went down in the starting rotation or kind of like how everything shaped up, but I mean, like you slid right in there and you never slid out. Like you came right in and pretty much established yourself. And you know, for the people that don't know, you were an all-star that year. That was the year you were, I think, second, maybe third in Rookie of the Year voting. How was that? Like, what was that experience like? Just getting settled in and getting to experience like the All-Star game, the end of the year awards, like all those exciting things along the way.
yeah. I mean, it was. I was not ready for it. That's for sure. I was not prepared for that type of. I mean, obviously, like we were kind of a rebuilding team too, so it's not like we were thrusted into this, giant market or anything like that. But at the same
Hmm.
time, like having that success, that more success than I had had over my entire minor league career, let alone
Hmm.
like doing it in the major leagues, um, and it was, yeah, it was pretty crazy. Leading up, it was like, um, just kept throwing that changeup over and over again, and then all of a sudden, like I thought for sure it was going to be Trey for the All Star game, and it
Yeah.
should have been Trey for the All Star game. He was having a better year than some other guys that got voted in,
Hmm.
and it was like, oh, it's me? Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
you were
so I was,
probably like the only one. Well, I mean, like, I think both of you guys should have been there. You know what I mean? But I
yeah.
think when you got selected and you were just like, what? I'm going? I think you were the only one in the clubhouse that was surprised because you had had such a good year up to that point. It just seemed like it was a no brainer.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I think because I was like, okay, he had like 20 homers by the break. I'm just like, this guy, he's going to the All-Star game. We're a small, like we weren't doing that well at that point, so
Hmm.
it was one of those things like, they're not going to send more than one guy from the Orioles, or the team that's struggling. So
Hmm.
I was like, okay, Trey's going, and went. Obviously, didn't pitch. That was just kind of hung out in the bullpen, and hung out in the bullpen, chatted up with some other guys, and got to experience everything though. So which that was cool.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning
Was,
the game. I did absolutely nothing for it, but we ended up
yeah.
winning the game.
Was there anybody at the All Star game in particular, or like a handful of guys that you were just like, I'm standing next to so and so. This is crazy. Like, how did we get here?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it was like the youngest All-Star game or one of the youngest All. So there's a lot of like younger guys. I mean, but like Vlad Jr. and like Torres at the time was young. Like all these
Hmm.
other guys were young, and so it was kind of a younger. Also, there was also like Cole and Verlander and some other older guys as well, or more veteran guys. But I remember, I mean, everybody is kind of around the same size. And then like in the bullpen, we were hanging out, and then all of a sudden, Aroldis Chapman walks in the bullpen. It's like this guy is huge. This guy is
Yeah.
from a different planet. I mean, goodness. I mean, how can I compete with this guy? You just see him, and it's like, okay, I get why you throw 100. But yeah, it's just like there's certain, yeah, people like that. It's like you're obviously a major leaguer, like
Yeah.
you're very good at what you do.
Yeah.
But no, I mean that was really the only thing, and it was just it's such a hectic week or like 3 days or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just you're constantly doing something, and you just kind of try to embrace it as much as you can. But it just your whole schedule's already planned out for you, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty crazy experience.
Yeah, I could imagine. Sometimes the second half of the season, especially after making an all-star team, can wear on somebody and their performance starts to kind of suffer. Not all the time, but
Hmm.
those 3 days are really nice to get to rest. And so, like, you didn't really get that at the time. So, going into the second half and still cruising the way you did, like, I mean, you actually, I think, might have even gotten better in the second half. Like, was that just for you? Was that a focus thing? Like, were you just running on adrenaline through the season? Was it like something work wise you were doing? Like, was there anything specific that, you were doing that really stood out or made a difference, down that home stretch?
Um, no, I mean, I had a little rough patch after the All-Star game. It was like the next month and a half, 2 months of just kind of like, okay, league's starting to figure you out a little bit, and you can't just throw change ups, all the time, and so I think it helped me really develop into more of a pitcher, and kind of understand what I do well and what they're sitting on, and
Mm-hmm.
where they're going looking at. But yeah, that was the second half was definitely tougher, but it still ended well. It was tough because, like, I mean, we'll get into this too, but it was like 2.5, 3 weeks after the All-Star game. It was when my dad got diagnosed, which is
Mm-hmm.
another thing we have in common.
Yep.
But with pancreatic cancer. So that was kind of eye-opening, because it was kind of one of those things that, you know, life is amazing, life is amazing. It's like going up, and then all of a sudden that happens, and it's like reality hits.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough, it's hard. Life, this means nothing.
Yep.
Kind of hits you, and you're like, okay, what's really important? And so that took a little bit to kind of to settle in. But yeah, it ended up being cool to get to the end, and be, in talks for the rookie of the year, and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, and it was definitely a tougher second half, mostly because of that.
Yeah, I remember, and I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago. I remember Devin said something about at the time. I don't know if everybody knew it was you, but your dad being diagnosed and unfortunately like, ended up passing away from that cancer. And I mean, I know we were majorly affected by that. Like, I mean, we talked about like you guys are some of our closest friends, and so to see you guys going through that and to walk through it with you guys, that was tough. But I think, like you
Yeah.
said, it really does bring things into perspective and make you evaluate things. So I can't even imagine playing baseball while that's going on. But, to get to have those experiences, like he was there with you at the All Star game.
Another
So,
really cool, yeah, experience was, so after it got diagnosed, and I went home for a little bit to kind of see him.
hmm,
And then we played in Kansas City,
yep.
which is where we're from, and it was really cool. That's the only time that I've pitched there, but I pitched in Kansas City, and it was like there was like hundreds of people that came out there to like
Hmm.
watch, but it was mostly also to be with him. And so
Yeah.
it was kind of like, hey, look at this, look how cool this is. But like we're, also to check in on him, be there for him. And
Hmm.
Dayton Moore, who was the GM at the time of the Royals, got my family a suite. And so it was
That's
just like they
awesome.
were able to like see it up there, and there's still pictures and everything and memories of all of that happening. And it was one of my better outings too. Thankfully, it wasn't just, I got crushed, but we ended up winning the game like 13-2 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of like my favorite memories ever, was that game, pitching in, Kauffman Stadium, and just, him being there, having all the family around. There was fireworks after the game. We were all sitting on the field after the game
Hmm.
watching fireworks, and so that was one of my favorite parts, probably the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, and as it should be. That's such a cool thing to be able to hold on to, and I know it's something that like you'll be able to carry with you. I know like your mom, like just your family in general. That's so impactful, so meaningful, and that's we've talked about it through the show. Like people helping people. That's what
Hmm.
That's what it comes down to, and I gotta applaud you guys. I mean, that's challenging. That's hard. That's
Hmm.
heavy, and you still showed up, you still worked so hard. Like, I mean, everybody knew what the situation was and what you were going through, but you never wavered, and I think that's something too. I can say from my perspective, seeing you from the outside as a friend, like I feel like that was a big turning point for you in terms of not necessarily baseball related stuff, but I feel like that was a big turning point for you and like your faith growing and becoming your own more.
Hmm.
Because up to that point, I think it's something we had talked a ton about. Like I knew there was a good foundation there, but I feel like that was one of those moments that really can shake the foundational. You get to see like, okay, how strong is this? Is this something that's going to crumble, or is it something that's not going to change and it's going to actually be built back stronger over time? But that was just something really cool for me to see, like as an outside perspective, as a Christian, as a brother in Christ, to see you continue to grow through that, not let that just destroy everything. That I I I was so happy to see that. I mean, obviously not the
Yeah.
circumstances, but
Yeah, but
um,
you use it, there's these things that happen in life that, it's not going to be easy. It's not like there's going to be times that can easily break you, or you could use it and use
mhm,
it to kind of fuel yourself and try to grow as much as you possibly can. And I definitely have some more growing to do, but I definitely
we
think
all
that,
do.
yeah, I know, right? Uh, it definitely helped me kind of put things into perspective. And I think I needed that. I think I needed because like and like being a professional athlete, like it's very easy to idolize success, right? It's easy to
Hmm.
idolize that everybody has to idolize something in their life. And
Hmm.
if it's going to be success in baseball, it's never going to fulfill you. And I think it was baseball there for a little bit. And part of it maybe still seeps in there every once in a while, but I think after that experience, you start to realize like, man, this is nothing compared to like
Hmm.
what family means and faith means, and just be able to have that comfort of like it's gonna be okay, and
Hmm.
because you need something to kind of hold those cracks together.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that's well said. And I know scenarios like that are hard, but like I said, I looking back at it now and even during that, I was just so encouraged to see like I could see that happening in real time. I could see that mindset being shaped, and so that was really cool to get to be a part of. After that, we kind of were kind of in the midst of COVID. That was a weird time.
It was 2020 because it was cool because that quarantine time. So that was the time that my dad was sick, and so
Hmm.
during that quarantine time was really a blessing in disguise. I was like, we were able to spend a lot of family dinners that we hadn't done in
Yep.
forever, and so we kind of were able to do that, and we were able to kind of, I was able to grill like 4 or 5 times a week and bring it
Hmm.
over and have family dinner, and so that was that part was good. And then the season, yeah, I mean, so he ended up. I think when did the season start in 2020? Do you remember? Like June,
It was
July,
like
something like
yeah,
that.
I think it was like the middle of July.
Yeah, and so my dad ended up passing on August 4th, or 5th. I don't know. Yeah, then and so that was tough to like. I went through the beginning of the season knowing when I was leaving
Hmm.
quarantine, it was like, okay, this is going to be probably the last time I see him,
Hmm.
and that was tough, kind of going to that and through that season, and then pitching and like knowing that he wanted me to go, and I debated staying back. I debated,
Hmm.
but he was my coach growing up. This is like I'm living his dream too. Like this is
Yeah.
exactly what he wanted. So I wanted to go and pitch, but I ended up coming back and for the funeral for a week or two, and then coming back into the season. 2020 was, yeah, it was such a weird time because it
It
was
was.
it was just everything needed to be masked, and there was no, it was harder to, I think it was hard at that time to like find community because like being around each other and yeah,
Yeah.
there was still COVID lingering and
Yep.
it's just, and so like going through cancer at that time is really tricky. And I know Devin's talked about, holding you hostage, trying
She
to,
did.
we were doing the same thing. It was
Yeah.
like, every, like where everybody went and everybody, like we had to like keep track of everybody's where being where they're at and
Yeah.
everything. So it was weird.
Masks, germs. I mean, you're thinking about, especially for you guys, that was like right in the thick of it when everything, there
Yeah.
were questions of what's real, what's not. Like, what do we need to do? How
Hmm.
serious do we need to be about this or that? So, like, I can imagine the precautions were even heavier than we experienced. So,
Yeah, it was. And then Caroline, my wife, was
yeah.
pregnant at the time too. So
Yep.
they dealing with that and trying to figure out, what's what COVID is, and
Yep.
yeah, like you said, like so there's a lot of different layers to it all.
Yeah. Well, like you said, with your dad passing, the timing, McCoy was born pretty much right around the same time. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of yeah, the new life begins. But he is so much like my dad too, which is so funny. It's
yeah.
it's it's like it's almost like he's carried on his, his mannerisms, his interests.
Hmm.
Like it's so funny. McCoy is obsessed with trains, like obsessed with trains. And so was my dad. My dad loved train. Like
Yeah.
he would take the train anywhere in the country over flying. Like
Yeah.
he did not want to fly. He's like, well, is the Amtrak, does it go from Kansas City to Chicago? I'll take that.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny to see little things here and there kind of be carried on. It's like, it's a little God wink.
Yeah. No, I without a doubt, and it's cool to even see that. I mean, I feel like that was recognized pretty much right away. Coy's a cool little dude in more ways
He's a
than
funny
one.
kid.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So we get through 2020, and hopefully, at that point we were like, is everything going to be back to normal? And
Hmm.
that year, you actually are the opening day starter. So, a couple years before, you kind of were the dark horse that came out of nowhere and made the team and then ended up killing it, being the All-Star and then Rookie of the Year. COVID was weird, and now you're the opening day starter. That had to be a pretty cool feeling, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. That was another, one of those really cool experiences. It was in Fenway Park,
Hmm.
when on opening day, and um, it was cool to kind of, yeah, 20. We were finally rid of 2020, and it was, it still was like a limited capacity, which made it like, but it was still really cool.
Hmm.
And having my whole family, like my family there, Caroline was there, my mom was there, and I think my brother he was playing at the time, so I don't think he was able to make it.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it was cool to do that and Fenway, and I ended up pitching pretty well. So that makes it obviously a little bit better too when you have success. But
Yeah, that kind of
um,
had to feel like a little bit of a redemption thing too, like from that first outing at the end of
yeah,
2018 to opening day starter and pitching well in the same place. I mean, Boston's always given me troubles. I've never had a good outing there. I mean, that had to be really, really cool for you just to kind of see that come full circle. And the crazy part about that is being opening day starter for most people would be like the highlight of their year potentially. And pretty much a little over a month later, you had a bigger highlight. Dive into that a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about what happened in early May for you.
yeah. I mean, I had I've been feeling pretty good to start the year, and I felt pretty good going out. It was a West Coast trip. We just got done with Oakland and went to Seattle, and the bullpen was terrible before the game, by the way. It was so bad. I
That's when you
was
know it's going to be a good
worried.
game.
I was so worried, and I was so nervous. I don't know why. Like it wasn't like it, Seattle was, you know, we weren't great. Seattle wasn't great. Like it wasn't like a, big game by any
Hmm.
stretch of the imagination, but I don't know why I was just so nervous. I was like, I might have to go to the bathroom before I go to the next game. Uh, when after I know this bullpen finish early, but I ended up just sticking it out and yeah, get out there and stuff's working and get to the point where I'm like, okay, this is going pretty well. I can maybe finish this thing out. And yeah, they and then yeah, get to the end. The ninth inning was a little shaky. I mean, it was my knees were shaking. That's what was shaky about it. It was my legs are a little kind of get those like those debut jitters a little bit.
Yeah.
And so and then the last out was a little soft liner to the shortstop that I was worried was a shift beater and turn around and then Ramon Urias is sitting there and catches it and yeah, it was over and it was a lot of fun. It was really cool. I didn't realize all the stuff you got from it because they give you like the rubber from the mound. They like bring
Really?
out I walk into the tunnel to go up um to the locker room and I turn around, the grounds crew guy has like the rubber from the mound
Holy
in his
cow.
hand. I'm like, and I didn't realize how big that thing was. It's like huge.
That's no joke. They go
Yeah,
deep with that thing.
they do. And yeah, and I'm like, what is that? And like, it's a rubber. I'm like, oh, okay. That's cool. When that was getaway day too, so we got to fly home. We had
Yeah.
like a 4-hour flight, and so
Yeah.
that was fun. Just kind of celebrate with guys, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, I know at that point I was in Durham. I don't even remember what clubhouse we were in because I was with Tampa at the time.
Hmm.
And I remember like I got a notification randomly like in because I think it was an earlier game, so we were playing a night game and I was able to watch everything because of that. And but I got this notification and it said that you had a no hitter through like seven, and I was just like, wait a second, John, me? Like, okay, well, I gotta watch this. And everybody was like, do you know him from Baltimore? And I was like, yeah, I know him pretty well actually. and,
Yeah, a
and so
little
I
bit.
like, yeah, and so I pulled it up, and I mean, like, I was right there with you. Like, I was so like anxious in the last inning, but I was just like, come on, come on, come on, like you can, like you got this. And
Yeah.
I like it was I wish there was a video of it because like our whole clubhouse, because they knew how invested I was just like cheering at the end of it. So it was like there was a lot of celebration from a lot of people outside of just y'all's clubhouse. So I mean that I can imagine that was just such a cool thing and such a fun thing to experience with, with the team and a little bit of a high note after everything you'd been through kind of up to that
Yeah.
point. I don't know the ins and outs of what goes on in heaven and everything, but I got to think that like your dad was looking down at that moment and had a hand in that, and
Yeah.
that added on to it. So we get through 2021, no hitter, good year, everything feeling pretty good. And I remember like we were going into that off season, we were talking a lot. Like you said, you were feeling good. You go into the 2023 season, and that's the year where you talked about early on. The first TJ came into play. Man, like I know that was tough on you. I know that was discouraging, but like, how did you handle that? How did you find a way to, because you kept such a good positive outlook on it. Like I remember us talking, you were like, this is just what I got to do right now, but I'll be back and I'll be good to go.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So it was opening day too. So I kind of like prepped all off season opening day, and it was one of those grinder out. It was against Tampa.
Hmm.
It was my second opening day start, and I'm going, and Tampa's always tough, but like that team is always tough. But
They are.
um, they just yeah, I ended up throwing like 80 pitches in 4 innings, just like 20 pitch inning after 20 pitch inning, and it's just a lot of you know tough pitches. But and it ended up in the fourth inning, I threw a curveball, and I just felt like a pop. I just like
Yeah.
felt like the forearm tightened up on me, and I was like, that didn't feel good. And I
Hmm.
started doing the old grip in my hand, and I threw another one. And I'm like, that still doesn't feel good. That's not, yeah. But my
Hmm.
velo didn't drop, and I was throwing the same velocity, and I ended up getting out of the inning. And then um, the next day, I like tried to play catch, and it was like I can't even get out to like 45 feet. But it's got to be just a tight forearm, right? It's got to be tight. It can't be Tommy John. There's no
Yep.
way. I've never had. never had any elbow issues like up to this point. So I'm like, I have no idea what this feels like, but just feels like tight forearm. And I end up going bullpen. That doesn't feel good, but I get through it, and ended up pitching the next game. Take some medicine and put some red hot on my arm and until I
Yeah.
can't feel it anymore. And I ended up going, I think 4 innings there or three and some, I don't know, but I think four. But pitched the first two. Um, through the first two, felt fine. It was like, okay, I'm okay. And then third inning, throw another curveball, and it's like that's that feeling again. Why does that
Hmm.
hurt? And then come back in, put some more red hot on, go back in the fourth, and go 1, 2, 3. But it still hurts, and came out, and then I was like, I can't do it. Like something's wrong, and so they did the MRI, and they're like, yeah, it's torn, and
Mm.
get the surgery, and he gets in there. He's like, "Yeah, it's like 90% torn. That was almost all the way gone."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Okay, like this happens to pitchers. This, Tommy John is common, and so I'm gonna trust the process." And ended up, you know, getting in really good shape, strong, and ready to go, and go start spring training, and then just have setback after setback after setback, and just during the catch play, and just it didn't like once I started really stretch back, I was trying to throw because everybody's like, okay, you're gonna throw harder after you have Tommy John. Like that's like the misconception of like, okay, you have Tommy John, and you come back throwing harder. And so I was just trying to rip this thing at 140 feet and try to gain that velo. And I think I ended up, messing it up early on, and then after that, it just wasn't ever the same. And so
Yeah.
just had the setback after setback, and um, I had the two setbacks during the catch play, and then I started to feel good again, good enough to go, and I was pitching in my last game of my rehab down in Florida before I went up to my rehab stint up in the minor leagues.
Hmm.
And the last game was doing a med ball throw to like get prepped, and my teres major, which is like a lat muscle, pulled on me, and the last rep, and it pulled, and I was like, no way, no way. And I go to
Hmm.
throw a weighted ball into the wall, and I'm like, oh no, that. And it just felt like it balled up in my armpit. I feel like
Yeah.
just felt like there was like I couldn't like lower my arm, and
Yeah.
so literally the last day, like I had a flight that night to go to, up to rehab starts, and sorry, nope, 2 to 3 more months is what they gave me on that, and
Hmm.
so that goes to like the end of the season, and I ended up getting 4 starts in, which is great, pitched great, but
Hmm.
did not feel good again in the elbow, and got the MRI, and they said, nothing's torn, but the graft's not fully matured yet. And I'm like, okay. They're like, we'll do another MRI in 8 weeks. And so another MRI 8 weeks later, and they put my elbow in into like a different angle into the MRI machine. And they're like, oh, you do have a torn flexor, a torn pronator, and it's almost in the ligament. And I'm like, great. I wish I would have known that early on. And
Yeah.
so it was just a mess, and end up trying to pitch last year, this past year, after missing that time, and
Hmm.
it just doesn't ever get better, and end up just trying to just tearing all the way through the ligament and needing another Tommy John this year.
Yeah.
And here we are, feeling great. No setbacks yet. No
Yeah.
setbacks yet, so which is good.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us to in the beginning when we were talking about rehab. That's where you're at right now, and everything sounds like you're making good progress. So we're happy to hear that.
Yes,
We want that to
but it's
continue.
yeah. But like we've said, it's like you can use it, or you can, get crushed by it. It's
Yeah.
you use these experiences, and your podcast has helped a lot, honestly,
I
just through the
appreciate it,
rehab
man.
process, and just like, you're going through what you're going through, and keeping a positive attitude. And so, I mean, who am I to not keep a positive attitude through this, and so
Yeah.
it's,
Well, and that's
and
easier
keeping the
said than
faith.
done, I think, too. I mean, the things that we've been going through, like it's easy to look at that and kind of say like, oh, well, that seems so much bigger, so much worse. But what we've kind of seen through this, and but I know like you've been through stuff as well. Everybody's going through things of their own, and so to see that, we're doing something that could be helpful to you going through this or other people going through difficult times. I know that your story and what you've been through also carries that same impact to so many people. And such a big part of that is like you've got such a cool platform and you've had so many cool, like we talked about, accolades. When you talk about the challenges and adversities you've been through and how you've overcome those, I mean, that gives that some credibility to where people may pay attention to it a little bit more and it may be more impactful. So, I mean, you've definitely utilized that as well as I think you possibly could. And so that's often, well, God, if I could talk, that's so that's awesome to see. We'll kind of start to wrap it up a little bit. Just had a couple questions, maybe let people get to know you a little bit more. And I don't even know if I know the answers to some of these, so might be surprised. We'll see. First off, do you have a favorite verse or story in the Bible or something that's just stood out to you or that you've carried with you?
My grandpa always had this saying, a proverb a day keeps the devil away, which is so funny. But I like Proverbs a lot, and I think it kind of helps with the wisdom aspect of it. And I like Proverbs like 3:5-6. I think is like, I think that it kind of helps me keep my faith. And it says, I think I have it right here. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. And so it's just going through tough times and going through just life in general. You just got to keep, you got to know that there's a plan for you, and your own understanding is never going to be able to be right. You can't plan anything. You're not going to know what the future holds. So got to keep the faith.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. Next one. And I think you might have even said, I think you said this earlier, but we'll ask it anyway. Favorite baseball experience?
Yeah, the one at Royal Stadium was really cool. That was probably the most special one for sure, and just I don't know. I've just felt that's the one where I just really felt the Lord most, honestly, in that time, and in those stands of just all the people that showed up, and it was I'll never forget it.
Yeah, awesome. If you weren't playing baseball, what do you think you'd be doing?
I've gone back and forth on this, especially now, rehabbing for the second time.
Yeah.
I think that I want to stay in the game. I think that I enjoy kind of giving kids hope. That I think that sometimes parents or coaches or whatever can, give up on kids pretty easily. And I was a late bloomer. I think you were a late bloomer as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that, helping grow the game to where kids feel like every kid feels like they have a chance. So maybe coaching or even like broadcasting I've thought about too, just to kind of add a different experience, to the game. I've done a little bit in Baltimore, just like hopping in the booth because I've been rehabbing so much that I just kind of hop in there with them every once in a while. And I kind of enjoy breaking down the game in different ways to kind of keep people interested, I guess. And so I've either those two ways. If you would have asked me back in AA, I probably would have told you work at UPS or something. But that's what my dad did was he loaded, he actually worked for the union, the truckers union towards the end of his life. But for 25 years, he was, working on the dock, loading boxes on the trucks. And so he worked at YRC, but he's like, UPS, they got great benefits. And so he's like, if you ever need a job, UPS. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. I'll do it.
Well,
but I think I need to stay in baseball now, but we'll see.
I think you have a lot to offer there, so I think that's definitely a good route. Last question. How have you seen your faith grow, and are there any specific areas you've seen it grow through everything, that we've kind of talked about over the last decade or so.
Yeah, and I think I said this. There's been, I've had times of, I feel really strong and sometimes not so much. And I think that um, when Caroline and I started dating, my wife, I really admired her faith. She has a very strong faith, and I think that really has influenced me a lot through our marriage. And so like being with her at that time, like going through, because we met in 2015, yeah,
Hmm.
and kind of gone through the baseball journey together, and she's seen me at my lows and kind of helped me keep the faith during those times. So really like the beginning stages of our marriage and through those times, she really helped me through that. And then also like going through my dad's diagnosis is really it. I think it crushed me and kind of brought me to a low early on in
Hmm.
the journey, and then towards the end, you start to really understand that this how important it is. And so there was a lot of asking why him, why me, why
Hmm.
that sort of thing early on. But I think I hit that low, and it really created an avenue for me to bring my faith even higher. So I think during those times where I saw the ebbs and flows, I kind of saw my faith kind of get to that point, and then now I feel like it's getting stronger and stronger through these rehab, and being able to be with my son and see, raising a child too has also kind of brought my faith to a different level, and wanting him to
Hmm.
grow up in a household where we talk about it a lot and it's brought up a lot. I think I've even asked you for recommendations on music to listen to in the truck,
Yeah.
just so he can listen to um, some Christian music, and so I think those things, the marriage, and then the hardship of my dad, and then also raising a child has kind of been the three different stages where I saw my faith grow.
Yeah. No doubt, man. And I mean, it's been cool, like I've said throughout this, to be able to walk with you through a lot of those things, to get to experience those things alongside you. I mean, I know you talked about Caroline. Caroline and Devin are really good friends. Where she has a cool story and cool background of her own, with you and independently of you. So I'm sure that at some point we'll have, whether it's her, whether it's both of you guys, we want to hear what she has to say and what she has to offer too. And yeah, but I mean, it's just been really cool to see you grow over the years, to see you guys grow together, and especially now as a dad, to get to see you guys raise a cool little guy. Yeah, I've
Mhm.
really appreciated it and enjoyed it, and it's crazy to think as we're talking about it that it's been a decade of kind of all these experiences and
All the
stuff.
the
But
journey. Yeah.
man, it has
What a
been
journey.
quite the journey.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but man, well, I appreciate it. I mean, love you, man. Like we've been through a lot together, and it's been fun to see where you're at today and to see the process of how you've gotten there. And I hope rehab continues to go well. I hope that you're back out there, and hopefully you get a couple more no hitters under your belt, and maybe we get to enjoy it together and be on the same team again. And but regardless, appreciate all that you who you are, and just all that you do for the people around you, and people probably that you don't even know. You make way more of an impact, I think, than you realize. So yeah, appreciate you just coming on and hanging out and talking a little bit and running through the story.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. Like I said, I'm a weekly listener, so I probably won't listen to this episode because I hate listening to my own voice. But thank you, thank you for having me on, dude. I love you, man, and yeah, we're in this journey together.
That's right. That's right. And for anybody listening, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Hope it's given you some good perspective on things and been helpful for you. If you have enjoyed it, then share with a friend, like, subscribe, rate, review, follow us on the socials. Like we're putting stuff up. We're trying to stay engaged and active with y'all, and we love to get feedback from you along the way. But we appreciate y'all as always. Thanks for listening. I'm David,
I'm John.
and this has been the 41 Life. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.